probably gotten one of these before. If you're in music, you've probably been rejected more than you've been accepted, and I think it's an important part of this field. With it being the time of year when many students are getting their undergraduate and graduate acceptances and rejections, I thought I'd give you my story of how I got accepted but rejected a number of times from my undergraduate degree at Arizona State. I'd also like to explain how a rejection doesn't mean that you have to quit being a musician.
Did you know about 80% of the people who watch my videos are not currently subscribed to my channel? Did you also know that about 60% of the people who watch my videos come from some sort of external sources like Facebook? So please, if you like my videos, subscribe to my channel. It really helps a lot. If you like the video, like it. It helps with the Facebook algorithm. And finally, if you want to hear something new, or if you want to comment on something I said, please leave a comment. I try my best to respond to every single comment that I get, and whether it's good or bad, and I look forward to hearing from you. This community is why I keep doing this, so thank you so much for being a supporter.
Like many people who are in music, I come from a musical family. I had a great aunt who was a piano teacher. Both my parents are amateur musicians, but for the most part, no one in my family really knew what getting a degree in music was going to be like. I started taking saxophone lessons maybe when I was about 14, and when I was 16, I took an AP Music Theory course, which is my first introduction to composition. Unfortunately, neither of my mentors or instructors in these spaces were very useful in giving me the resources or the knowledge to know what getting into a music school looked like. And honestly, the music theory class was kind of a joke. We watched movies on Fridays, and I'm pretty sure we watched the movie Moulin Rouge like 6 times. But the one fun thing was that the final project for that class was a composition assignment where we had to just write some sort of short piece. I had a friend at the time who was very interested in film scores and really got me into different types of film music. And so I decided to do a rescoring of the opening to Final Fantasy IX, and it was really bad, is what I'll say. But by doing so, it really started making me interested in film and video game music. I then started writing these pieces in Finale Notepad and started putting them on Newgrounds, which was a popular website where people made flash games and movies, as well as there was some music on there. And this piece is still, today, my most viewed piece of all time at 14,000 views. But at the time, it was at about 6 or 7, and that's when I decided to start looking at maybe becoming a music major. At the time, my grades were just okay, so I knew I was planning on only applying to the in-state schools. Those options were Arizona State, University of Arizona, and Northern Arizona University. Now, I knew nothing about what music school was. Like many young people, we just assumed that getting into college is the hard part. I had no clue that there was going to be an audition and expectations of like knowing what you're doing. And I thought that just the fact that I took AP Music Theory and I had taken some lessons was going to be sufficient in getting me into school. Wow, was I wrong. My first audition was with Tim McAllister on saxophone. I had never heard of him before this. I played the first movement of the Creston Sonata, a staple in college saxophone repertoire. It wasn't amazing, but it also wasn't terrible. From my memory, I recall being told that depending on the recommendations of the composition area, that would be the biggest factor in determining my admissions. Later that day, I had my first interview with Dr. Jody Rockmaker for composition. It was really my first interview outside of like just an after-school job where I worked at Cold Stone. I thought I was super prepared, thinking, wow, I'm hot shit. I have this piece on Newgrounds, and I just won my school's talent show and was the section leader and went to solo and ensemble and all the different things. And I remember clearly when he asked me the question, what composers did I like? I really laughed about it today, though, because I don't even think I understood how everything you see about music school on TV is totally wrong. I had no clue that just loving Beethoven doesn't make you interesting. And I had no clue that at the time, and it's a little different today, but at the time, film and video game music was not necessarily valued as much that much. I also had no clue that just having an interest in film and video game music and applying to a program that didn't focus on that would hurt against me. I didn't know that many of the people applying had been composing for much longer than I had done summer programs and had composition instructors. Suffice it to say, he told me on the spot that I would not be getting into their program, that I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and that I was going to need some help if this is something that I really wanted to do. Now you might be asking yourself, hey now, why would that instructor put you down like that to your face? And my response to that is that Jody Rockmaker actually put me on the right path for success. And you might be asking how. Well, obviously this is not the news I was looking for. He actually pointed out what I needed to do and gave me a lot of advice. First off, he asked me where I lived and pointed me to Paradise Valley Community College, where Dr. Christopher Scinto, a former student of his, was teaching. Rockmaker told me that if I worked really hard and took lessons with this person, that it would help me get into this music school. He wasn't making me any promises, but he did tell me, he gave me the way to do it. And the nice thing about community college is that the cost for a credit is really not that much. And so I was getting college credit for doing this while also preparing to get into a composition program, which is what I ultimately went on to do. I was pretty depressed at the time. I didn't have very many friends. I was really awkward. I had no real idea what I wanted outside of music. It was the only place where I was happy. And so I remember showing up to my first lesson and being excited and also just working really hard because this is what I really wanted. I worked with him for the next 6 months and then decided to start at Arizona State to do my first semester of college as a pre-music major is what they called us. So first week of band camp at Arizona State, I decided to send Dr. Rockmaker an email and ask him for a meeting to see if I could show him my progress that I had made working with Dr. Scinto for the last 6 months. Unfortunately for me, he ended up being on sabbatical, but he pointed me to Dr. Roshanne Etezady, who was going to be teaching the freshman composition class that semester. He told me I should send her a note and ask her if I could show her my progress. I remember asking HUD if I could skip just a little bit of band camp so that I could go do this meeting. So I thank you, HUD, for letting me do that. Here I am, sweaty Arizona summer. Really, Arizona band camps in August is the worst, and don't recommend it to anybody, but also do it because ASU is great. Now, if you've never met Roshanne, you might not get that. Like, she's just like really funny, interesting sense of humor, but is also really kind-hearted and really wants to motivate you, and is honestly one of the best instructors I've ever had. I showed her the saxophone piece that I'd been working on, and I remember the feedback that I got. It was incredibly square, very 4/4. Everything was on the beat in G major, and not a whole lot of delineation from that. She pointed to me some really good examples, and she asked me, what was my instrument and why did I pick saxophone? When I mentioned that I played saxophone, she asked if I had auditioned for the saxophone studio, which is probably where I learned that she was also married to the saxophone professor. Fortunately for me, she saw some potential. She agreed to let me take her freshman composition class, just giving me the heads up that I would still have to pass a saxophone audition and composition audition in the future. So first semester of college, things are going pretty well. My happiness level is at an all-time high. I have friends. I'm in classes that I really like. I met my boyfriend of 11 years. I also figured out that I was gay. Things were going well. In December, the composition faculty invited me for a jury, mostly to see how I'd progressed. And I got an email shortly after letting me know that they were very impressed with all the progress that I made, and as long as I passed my saxophone audition, I would be admitted into the composition program. So 2 months later, I show up to my audition, and if I'm going to be real honest with you, I really hadn't been practicing saxophone all that much. I had been busy trying to figure out this composing thing, which I thought was why I was struggling in music school, and I didn't have saxophone lessons anymore. I wasn't trying to become a saxophonist, I was trying to become a composer. I go in, I play the same Creston Sonata, and the line I clearly remember is, "I think your playing has declined this year," and told me again on the spot that I did not pass my saxophone audition. I, admittedly very mad, asked why I hadn't passed. And he told me that not only did I come in and play the same piece that I did last time, I was playing it at a lower level than I did the first time. I hadn't made any improvements in over a year. I told him that I didn't have an instructor. I told him that I was kind of on my own here and that I didn't know what to do. This is what I really want to be doing. I'm succeeding in the composition department. And he basically told me that this was going to be challenging because I'd be so far behind not being accepted at this point. In the same room was the saxophone TA, Dan Puccio. Now, he leaves McAllister's office the same time that I do, and he asks if I was okay. I'm noticeably upset because why wouldn't I be? And I probably would be for the next couple of weeks if I'm being real honest here. He asks me if I'd join him for coffee. At this point, I didn't really see why I would because I was really mad. I mean, like really mad. I agree though because I don't see what's the harm. We walk across the street and he asks me why I was doing this, and I tell him I can't imagine doing anything else. This is the only thing that makes me happy. I told him everything that I had been through up to this point. I told him what music meant for me, and I was really just trying to explain, like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. At the end of this coffee, he tells me to meet him next week in his office and that I was going to be taking saxophone lessons with him. And if this is something that I wanted, I was going to have to work very hard every single week, and that I was going to have to practice and I was going to have to do the work. He also told me that I would be attending all of the studio classes and all saxophone events, which I did have to drop a class for, and that I would just have to really work hard. One thing that I'd also like to point out is that I don't think I paid him for those lessons, or at least I don't remember doing it. So thank you, Dan, from the bottom of my heart, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. You know, the first lesson is etched in my brain. I don't think I even touched the instrument. He played two musical excerpts. The first one, the Bach C major prelude, and asked if I knew what the piece was, and I did not. The second, did not know that one either. And then he asked me how much saxophone music did I listen to. I was honest and said I know the Creston Sonata and the Rascher arrangement of Handel Sonata No. 3 because I played it at solo and ensemble, and I did get a superior on that. He then handed me a CD. On it, there was a tuning CD, and then there was about 30 pieces of staple saxophone repertoire that I had never heard of before. He also had me go get a binder and gave me about like a 200-page document of all of this materials that included breathing exercises, rhythm exercises, technique, scales, everything. And said this is what I was going to need to do to get into the studio. He also told me the amount of practice time that I was probably going to have to put in, which was way beyond what I was expecting, and said this is what it took. And so me, determined and stubborn, because when people tell me no, I say screw you, I'm going to do it anyways. And that's what I did. I worked very hard, and I was invited to a joint composer saxophone barbecue at the McAllister Etezady household. McAllister pulled me aside and told me that Dan had been reporting to him on my progress and said that he was very impressed, saying that I had been working extremely hard and that I should be given another shot. He told me that he was going to give me a new audition, but right before school started, so that if I passed it for my second year, I could start taking music classes with all of my classmates, but as a sophomore. He even gave me advice on repertoire, which was the Eccles Sonata. That summer, Dan got this really awesome opportunity to go to Cuba, and told me that unfortunately he was going to have to stop working with me so that he could go do that. I understood, but I was also incredibly, scared because Dan was really pushing me in the areas that I needed so that I could be successful. Fortunately, he set me up with Dr. Patrick Murphy, or now Dr. Patrick Murphy, who was another DMA student at ASU, who offered me a ton of coaching and gave me those extra lessons before my audition that happened in the first week of August. I walked into McAllister's office, probably the most nervous I'd ever been. I start to play, and I say, this is the most prepared for that I've ever been for an audition, ever. I was mentally there. I had worked really hard, and he told me on the spot how impressed he was with the amount of work that I had put in such a short amount of time. He did say that it was going to be hard, and that I would have to put in the work or it wouldn't work out. And then he told me that I was accepted into the saxophone program. I won't lie, I was a solid B- student, A's and everything else, but for saxophone, B-. By my last semester though, things had really started to click, and I ended up playing on my last jury, which also happened to be McAllister's last semester at ASU, the Glazunov Saxophone Concerto, and I ended up getting an A. And that is probably one of my proudest musical moments. I'm playing with Liz Ames in the back, and she's here, and McAllister walks out of the jury room and tells me that he was proud of me. He shakes my hand and says that's the best I've ever played for him. I didn't just prove to him that I was worth being there. I proved to myself that I was willing to do the work because this is something that I really wanted. Now, whenever I see him, he gives me a big hug, and he's extremely supportive. I would end up going on and getting a master's and a DMA in composition, and I've written a pretty large body of work for saxophone at this point. The reason I tell you this story is because it wasn't just the rejection and me being stubborn. There were some people who really were looking out for me, and I'm really thankful for all of them. And I know I didn't mention Liz Ames other than in my Glazunov jury, but Liz Ames is a big part of that. And she just recently played a piece of mine at NASA in March of 2020, which was really great. And the thing is Dr. Rockmaker never said no. He didn't discourage me. He just told me the truth. And I was competing for a spot in a program against other people. And the thing is that I would much rather him tell me the truth so that I could be successful. Not just in his program, but like as a composer. If people don't tell you the truth, how are you supposed to improve? But it wasn't just that he told me the truth. He gave me resources. He told me places that I could go, and he did it in a way that wasn't going to be prohibitively expensive. Community college is an affordable alternative to traditional college, and for me, it was also 5 minutes away from where I lived. Dr. Etezady encouraged me. She saw potential when nobody else did. She gave me a chance when nobody else wanted to. The last time I saw her, she told me that she tells my story to other students because this is, I'm proof that sometimes it just takes some hard work. Dr. McAllister also just told me the truth. The thing about this field is that, yes, being rejected sucks. Like a ton. But that's how it is in life. Would you rather him not tell you the truth? Would you rather just accept it and totally fail out, or tanking your GPA? Or would you rather them just give you A's so that they don't have to deal with you, and then when you get to school, you are totally unprepared and you have no actual skills? No, he told me the truth, and he told me what I needed to do to be successful. Dr. Puccio, although he wasn't a doctor yet, was the mentor I needed when I needed it. We are still really great friends, and prior to the pandemic, we were talking about me writing him a piece, and I hope that still happens. Dr. Murphy, also not a doctor yet, stepped in the moment when I really needed help, and I got another perspective. But most importantly, I did the work, and I think that that's the thing to remind yourself, is that I was not a failure. I just needed someone to show me the way, and that's the important part. People ask me why I want to teach, and it's because of the people that I just described. The people who told me the truth, but also were supportive and lifted me up. They were my biggest cheerleaders. They were the people that I am holding up everyone else to nobody else amounts to to the people who got me through this experience. And when younger composers come and ask me for my advice on grad school and just professional advice, I almost always tell this story because I think that you're going to get rejected a lot. And I think what matters more than how you handle your acceptances, it's how do you handle your rejections? How do you take your rejection and make it something that you can grow from? Rejection is not the same thing as failure, and generally you never know why you got rejected, and in some situations you won't know why. I was really lucky to know why I was rejected from school, and was very fortunate to have people to show me the way. This is why I want to teach, because I want anybody who isn't rejected to understand, at least in some sense, why it's not going to work out at this moment. But I never want to send someone a rejection that is not helpful. I want them to grow from the experience. I was hoping to talk a little bit about grad school auditions, but that's maybe for another time because this video is probably already too long. If you liked this video, if you liked me telling this story, and you want to hear other stories from my musical past, please comment below and let me know. And I'll make another video for my master's in DMA applications. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for listening, and feel free to share your stories as well. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your stories below because I really want to hear them. I think that rejection's tough, but we all get rejected a lot. So anyways, keep being creative, and thank you for watching.